YouTube, welcome on in. I got a very, I know I say it every time, but this time a very special guest. He was just on for the tier list stream. Mr. Valkyria, apparently. Valk, how you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Car. Thank you so much. How are you?
Good. So Valk, we've never had a review for you before. We were supposed to. Something happened, technical difficulties. But now I'm glad for the first time we get to post-review you after your legend finish, correct? Look at this fancy frame.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here, man.
All right, so Valk, before we start, we're just going to go, the typical, go down the list of units, show everyone all the gear. You tell the tidbits on drafting, what units contributed most to your success. But before we start, you want to give a little background info. And of course, guys, as always, I'll have Valk's Twitch and YouTube somewhere in the pinned comment in the description, so make sure y'all check them out. Valk, tell us a little bit about yourself. Twitch knows you. Some of my YouTube audience may not know you yet.
Absolutely. What is going on, guys? I'm Bryceria. I'm a content creator / Epic 7 player. I'm one of the players that probably know me as like the game a little bit too much. I would say the thing to know about me is that I'm not the best player. I don't have the best account. I don't have the strongest mental, nor do I play the most games. So what I'd like to do is I like to put in research outside of the game. I think that does two things for me, right? Mm-hmm. I think no matter what, to be a good player, to be a top player especially, right, you got to put a little bit of research in. But on top of that, you got to put your time in somewhere. So since I don't have any of the other prerequisite things to be a top player, I like to put in research, and what that does is also helps me make cool content for people.
So Valk, doing your homework will get you legend?
As somebody who really hated academics, unironically, that is correct.
Okay, well, guys, he said he wasn't the best gear, best skill, best mental. What did you say, Valk? Not the best.
I don't have the best account. I don't have the best. I'm probably not the best at drafting.
Okay.
I'm probably don't have the strongest mental either. I get a little bit nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
I probably also. Yeah, what did I say? I said the whole spiel and I just kind of forgot.
You made up for all those with your research, your diligence, your attention to detail in terms of gearing, and hopefully we can see that in your units. You ready to start?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go down the list, boys. Starting with Kisei, his top CP unit. Valk, how often do we use your last season, and particularly nearing the end of last season?
Yeah, so before we dive into any units, right, I just kind of want to quickly paint a picture, right? Sure, there's a couple of things that intersected and made my account the way it is. Mm-hmm. So
sorry guys, quick interruption. Hopefully this is seamless. Valk, you were just talking about the intro to your account.
Oh yeah, so before we get into the units, right, I just want to paint this picture of why my account is structured the way it is, right? And that's kind of like how I like to make content. I don't just like to show people units. I like to tell people why I built the units that way. So even if they can't reach my stats, at least they have an idea of how to build their own units, right? Because after all, E7 is a gear game. So at the end of the day, everybody's going to have a slightly different account.
True.
So for my own account, right, this season, I was talking to my guild leader towards the end of the season, and he says, washable platypi, and he was telling me, yeah, bro, like, I've been with you at the end of the season for 2 seasons now, and what happens is you hit a bad luck streak, and then you start to lose confidence, you don't trust yourself, you don't trust your draft, and you don't trust your team anymore. Yeah. I think if you want to hit legend this season, what you got to do is... you really just gotta play your comfort, bro. Like, if you play your comfort, you got this. So I really hammered that into my head because Platy, as you know, is like a 2-time legend. So I'm just telling myself, okay, play comfort, play comfort, play comfort. And the entire season, right? It was like the game is being crept more towards more cleave favored. Until suddenly, like 2 weeks from the end of the season, right? We had that patch that kind of completely shifted the power dynamic, and then Hua Young came out. So, all of those things kind of intersected, which is why you see my account in the current state it's in.
Okay. Well, sounds good. Well, guys, first off, that was a perfect Platy impression. Second, I think he's 100% right. Platy and you are right on the whole mental comfort draft, guys. That's a term I've been using a lot lately. You know what happened to me segue real fast, and then we're going to start, because it's not about me, but guys, hopefully y'all can learn from this. Every end of the season, you try to change things up last minute because things are starting to go bad. I think you got to just stick to your guns. And even with Hua Young, like Valk said, 2 days before release, we still played the same game plan. And that was the best success we had in the season. So I think that's 100% true. All right, Valk, you ready to start going down the list?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, starting with Kisei. How often did we use the lovely Kisei this season?
Ironically, not a single time. I built her originally as a Hua-Young counter, but the way drafts shake out nowadays, which is like if we play standard versus standard, right? At the highest level, a lot of times what happens is the two players shake hands. You know, I take Peyra, you take Lilius, vice versa, right? It's really hard to draft these like mid-speed heroes, or mid-high speed heroes, because what will happen is if you have a speed contester, I have a speed contester in the open, and you pick a Kisei on like 3 or 4, right? Mm-hmm. All I have to do is pick an Acid last, pick a Ran last. Suddenly, your Kisei's in danger.
Right.
So at the highest level, I found her a little bit hard to use.
Yeah, and then before that, she kind of got pushed out of the meta because of Rimu, especially when people were running her still on like Alexa's Basket, right? Before the Wind Rider buff and all that stuff. Okay, so she's an option, but right now very hard to draft because of that situation where she gets countered.
Right.
Okay. Arbiter Villager next. This guy.
Arbiter.
Yeah, with the skin. What do you think, Valk?
Yeah, I think the skin is very, very cool. I think he needed one of these like dark skins for quite a while now.
Amen.
But I think right now, Arbiter Villager is one of those heroes where I think for the longest time he fell off, right? But right now the game is so fast and aggressive, and a lot of times you kind of want a hero who can kind of guaranteed to get one, AOE damage off, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And RB kind of comes back a little bit for that. For me personally, I picked him maybe slightly less than a handful of times, but generally speaking, I just like to build him very high damage so that if a cleaver ever tries to cleave me and he doesn't draft any type of like extra turn or stabilizing mechanic, right, or I think I can ban it out, I would just pick an RB on 5th, and he kills my RB comes back. If I drop a Gab, he's instantly dead. If he doesn't, then he's almost dead. Game
decider with or without Gab. Gab is for sure though. And on top of that, Valk, I like the gear, the stat lineup. This is what I usually recommend because it, like Valk said, it's hard to draft him normally in the meta now, guys. Especially if you just try to put him in a standard draft. But for scenarios where like against aggressive players or cleave players, this is the exact build I think everyone should shoot for. Around 200, 210, 220 speed like Valk, and just go for all damage because like he said, it's all about just getting that one attack and then putting enough damage to stop that aggro player, because usually they don't have sustain. Usually RB one attack after reviving will be enough. Valk, anything else to say on him? Ready to move on?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, Fire Kowarik, Fire Hand guy. What's
Fire Hand guy.
Yeah. He has your symbol, so he's an important part of your draft, right?
Yeah, he generally speaking, I played him a small amount, right, going into the last week. But last week, I actually ended up in the position with my draft where I'm the one getting Fire Hand Guide all the time, and I would say I would say the most important thing, right, for him is that he's really good into the other hand guy type aggro. So if somebody just wants to pick like a 250 speed hand guy with a bunch of DPS units behind him, right? You just pick a slightly faster Fire Hand guy. You press your S3 button, and their entire team usually dies. And I've lost a few games like that on last day in a situation where I can't ban Fire Hand guy, and I'm just praying my ML hand guy is fast enough to race him, and in a lot of times I just lose.
Hand guy versus hand guy. Valk, doesn't he kind of fall in that lineup, the speed though that you're talking about with Kisei, that same kind of issue where they're a midliner speed?
Yes. So they'll run into the same problem, right? But if you can put yourself in a situation where you take one of the contesters and you see your enemy isn't going for a draft where they can fit a Ran into their team on last, right? Yeah. Because if we trade Lilius and Peyra, usually like the last pick is going to be like a Ran or something. You can slam Fire Hand Guy and Kisei together. Okay. And the other guy will be put in a really awkward position. And right. Those would fall into line with some of those awkward games I lost on the last day.
Got it. Okay. Moving down the line. Thank you, boys. Milim up next. This is when Valk, like, stocks? What do you think? Stocks are going up or down for Milim?
So I think this is one of the things that I kind of experimented with this season. Okay. The entire season, I ran one of the best Milims in the world. And I always talked about her, right? Same goes for Obsig. I ran the two heroes I had extreme amounts of investment in is Milim and Obsig. And going into last week, I just completely yoinked their gear for more meta heroes. And whenever the Milim came out, she was still usable. But if she came out on 5th, she just instantly drew a ban. And that was part of my macro strategy for the whole season.
Okay, and Valk, is this still the same lineup when she was allegedly the best Milim one of the best Milims in the world? Or did she
not even close. Okay, when she was better, Yeah, she got nerfed by like 600 attack.
Okay. So does that mean you stopped using her as much?
Yeah, but I think in drafts where she's good, she's still a very, very fine, like 4th or 5th.
Okay. But this is the kind of the lineup, the stat line you were going for an aggro player, and you just wanted like way more attack, correct?
Yeah, so you go like, you know, I would say like for an aggro player, right? What you're doing is you're drafting 2 attack buffs and a bunch of like DPS units, anywhere from like 220 speed to like 250 speed behind your attack buffers. And you're just kind of trying to draft yourself into a high value, advantageous position to kill your opponent or try to create a situation where your opponent has such a huge disadvantage. They can't like 2v4, they can't 2v3 your team.
Sounds good. All right, so Valk, talking about the units you're choosing, guys, if we look at the top CP so far, Valk, we kind of didn't address it fully. What kind of player would you say you are?
Oh yeah, so I started out the game as a like Soul Weaver gamer, right?
That's true. Unfortunately, YouTube couldn't see your review, but you were known. You told me all your gear was rolling, your account was rolling ER. Man, it's so different. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was actually refribbling my account on stream last night, and people were like, you know, make Degen Solitaria, make Degen Angel of Light. I'm like, so I probably made some pretty nasty ones last night. I started out as like a pretty safe player.
Yeah.
Going into like season 3, you know, which was when I started streaming, I was pretty clueless, right? I spammed Golden Boys. After Golden Boys kind of fell off, right? I was like, wow, my account has pretty good Soul Weaver gear. I can build every Soul Weaver on Earth. So I played Soul Weaver gaming, entering season 4. Most of season 5, I played a very standard bruiser style with Landy, but I kind of boomed that season because Landy kind of, like a standard Landy got shut down really hard by Rimuru. So this season, because Cleave was so prevalent, right? Because Smilegate kept releasing more and more fast units.
Yeah, definitely.
I told myself, like, I kind of have to pick up on Cleave. And I don't have the fastest gear. So what I did was basically I put whatever I could afford on my faster units. And then against top players, I just contested them anyway. And I banned their fastest units. And generally speaking, like, if I take a Payra, I take a Rand, like, cleavers can't really cleave me, right? You know, there's like the freaks who will naturally outspeed me with a C. Lilius. There's also guys who will take like 2 imprints and then race me with stuff like Flan Charles, right? So those are still matches I'm trying to learn. But I think even if you don't have the fastest gear, if you just contest fast players on their fastest units, you can also cleave.
You can also cleave. Guys, not only did we just, with Lucina in the chat, make a Cleave 101 guide, now Valk is also saying anyone can cleave. I don't know if I like this agenda, but it is what it is. Valk, talk to me about Vildred. Sword of Summer Twilight, as a cleaver, did he come out pretty often for you?
Yeah, I would say throughout the season. If I really wasn't comfortable racing a specific player, he would come out as a default. I would also say, like, on the ladder, there's a specific classification of players known as light clones. And there's one specific light draft where you first pick Politis, I think, and then the second rotation you take Ram plus Green Vildred.
Ram plus Vildred.
For that specific draft, right?
Yep.
When you notice somebody is doing that draft, you steal the Green Vildred from them. Most of the time, these light clones, they just copy, like, you know, Mr. Light E7, right? Who's like kind of like the godfather of Cleave around Twitch.
Yep.
You just take the Green Vildred, and most of those guys are just fucking clueless.
Clueless, he says, boys.
Yeah, they really just get lost in the sauce. So you steal their Green Vildred, you guarantee your speed imprints, and then you race them, and on top of that, they really get lost in their draft. And I would say, like, just having him built is an amazing tech. Yeah, this season kind of taught me that if you just take faster players' units, a lot of times they don't know what to do against you.
Amen, brother. Valk, just saying, just for today, Valk, if we can keep
oh yeah, my bad.
Yeah, you know what I'm about to say. All right, hey, Valk, Summertime Bryceria next. Guys, speaking of cleaving, this girl, Valk, how important was she?
I would say throughout the entire season, she was one of the most important picks. After Designer Lilibet's buff, she stopped being super relevant.
So is that what it was? Designer Lilibet is what kind of stopped her?
Yeah, actually, if you want to do this, click the equipment manager real quick.
Okay.
go into the rings, and we're gonna do this real quick. Go to the rings.
Yep.
We're gonna put on speed set, effectiveness main,
effectiveness main stat, sure.
and then we're gonna sort by speed.
Sort by speed, okay.
Yeah.
Welcome on in, guys.
And we're gonna click the second one.
Second one.
Yep. So this season, what happened to me was my good friend Kami got me into keyboards. And he used this word a lot. He's like, you can hot swap this. You can hot swap this. And that term kind of just got stuck in my head. And I started realizing, wait, I can hot swap my character's builds too. So depending on, you know, on a certain given day, right? If I'm not doing enough damage to kill an enemy, or if I'm getting resisted a lot by these Soul Weavers, I will hot swap my Summertime Bryceria's ring kind of to match what I need her for that day. And this is one of the builds I had going to last week. And I swapped this a good amount, I would say, the last month of the game.
Chat, any other hot swappers? So, Valk, is this what you're talking about when you said this is your homework? This is crazy. But I like it. Hot swapping rings, chat. New tech developed by Valkyria. All right. So, she kind of fell off a little bit because of Dilibet. But do you think she's still... Would you still recommend up-and-coming cleavers the builder, or maybe hold off for now?
I would say no matter what, I think there's always going to be a place for her. Designer Lilibet is really good against the initiators that she's commonly played with. But I would say if you're playing like something like, for example, Wind Demon styles like Reverse Cleave, then she's still kind of a staple unit in that type of team comp.
Because Dilibet doesn't necessarily... Yeah, she doesn't stop the bombs, right? Because the way her cleanse works, she just stops the openers. Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right, still builder, he says. Next up, Valk, this is a unit you were known for a while. Look at that speed, oh my god.
Yeah, so what happened was exactly 1 season ago, my entire account imploded in terms of power level because a standard bruiser style Landy just got absolutely dunked on by Rimuru. So towards the end of the season, a few friends passed me a little secret tech, right? And, you know, as somebody who didn't cleave most of my lifetime playing this game, I didn't realize a cleave Landy is actually just a hard counter to Rimuru. So what happens is the enemy team picks a Rimuru, you give yourself an attack buff, you bring like 1 or 2 books with you, you soul burn your Landy, Rimuru's like, let me steal that. So as long as you can build your Landy to be able to survive any type of Rimuru pants grab, which I have here, you build her a little bit faster, you build her with as much damage as you can, and like a Soul Burn S3 into a Refresh S3 will generally kill an entire Rimuru team.
That's the tech, and I know a lot of people have trouble with Rimuru, but Valk, the gear, is this is the current iteration? Nerfed at all?
This is like, I would say this is very optimized.
Okay.
The requirement for a speed Landy is that you outspeed most people's Amelias and hand guy. I know mine is a little bit on the slower side, but my account kind of is a little restrictive when it comes to faster gear.
You would like
I think ideally,
yeah.
I think ideally the speed bracket you want to be at is like 265, maybe even 268, which I can make, but my attack buffers can't be faster because I lack speed in that department.
Elf says it's cracked as is. Imagine, boys, you want to be like 268. That's a very specific tag. That's kind of hard to pull off, but very nice.
Yeah,
all right.
And the Landy is specifically tuned. I damage calced everything. I built like the most cracked pen set Rimuru I could. And I made sure this Landy would survive that by exactly like 100 HP.
So you took the best Rimuru possible and you still lived.
Yeah, but based on my account. So if I had to play against like Elv or Jinte or something, my Landy might probably still die.
Oh, rip. Okay. Next up, Ida. She's been a terror, Valk. This girl after her buffs, my goodness. What do you think about her?
Oh, so 2 words. God unit.
God unit, really?
Absolutely. So I thought she was going to fall off with Bryceria after designer Lilibet buffs, but I could not be more wrong. Because what happens is if you still have your best gear on Ran, on Payra, a lot of times people pick designer Lilibet into you. How you play that is on Ran, you press your S2, and then you don't press your S3. On Payra, you press your S3, and you don't touch your S2. And then these designer Lilibet guys are just going to be like, wait, you're not allowed to do that. Press your buttons, please. I need my CR push, sir. And you go, nope, I am about to cleave your whole team.
Yep, I've been there, boys. I think she's part of the reason people were saying cringe cleave. But Valk, anything else? The stat line is exactly where you like it. Very good speed, good damage. I mean, on book.
I think ideally, depending on how you play, right? So my Ida will cut to about 97% of where my Payra and Ran are at.
Yeah.
And they're in the same speed bracket, but because I'm already very stretched out on speed gear, this is the best speed I can make. So what I did was just juice up the damage instead.
So ideally, you'd like her to be what, 250?
Yeah, 250 would be a really comfortable point to have her.
Okay. All right, moving on. We got Bryceria.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite heroes in the game. I think her design is amazing.
So looks-wise, you're really into her. But gameplay-wise, Valk, how often did you use her?
I used her an incredible amount, like, throughout the entire season. So my tech for her is I like to build her fast. I like to put her on Guiding Light, put as much damage as I can on her, and I play her behind hand guy, whether that's my opponent's hand guy or my own hand guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so...
Even opponent hand guys?
So, yeah, so in the case where I have hand guy, a lot of times a common counter pick is Rimuru, and well, you know, she happens to rip Rimuru apart, except for the times where we get 15%, in which case can only say unlucky, and then we go next, right? But against opponent hand guy, one thing I realize is the most OP thing about hand guy is that he has options, right? He could buff up, he can reduce your damage dealer's attack,
he does everything.
And he can CR push his own units, right?
Yeah.
But in situations where, let's say the next unit up that the hand guy has to push, right? Because hand guy can't choose which unit he pushes the next unit. In those situations, hand guy, if he can't push something that can threaten a Bryceria, right? She's incredibly good because a hand guy can't, with a Guiding Light, he can't attack break her. And then if he drops his S3, he basically just wastes his cooldown because you could full strip his team.
It's the fact that you're speed tuned like usually to be after his first turn. And guys, for the record, if anyone on YouTube, because all my Twitch viewers, right, we all know about the infamous hand guy, and that is sorry, what?
Mediator Coeric.
Mediator Coeric is the unit. Sorry guys, the fiance's popping in the chat. Babe, we got love you, baby, but I'm at work, okay? We're doing some serious stuff. Sorry, YouTube, for the interruption. Valk, what were we talking about? Babe, by the way, we got to order some HelloFresh. Okay. Bryceria, very good against Coeric, who is a cleanser, but you speed tuned her to be right after, or right after him, and it's been working out well for you, right? Okay.
Absolutely, and she has an amazing matchup into like common complaint units, right? Like Rimuru, Green Violet.
Yes.
You know, ML Violet kind of gets caught in the crossfire
because of her passive.
So anything with evasion, she's really good against.
Yeah, and guys, also check out the Lucina review I did for Cleavers as well. He used this unit also a lot. A little bit different than Valk. I think he had Symbol, but they're showing two different ways to use her. A lot of people have her and aren't sure where to bring her in. It's a good time for her, right, in the meta.
Okay.
Absolutely. Valk Spectenny, widely regarded as just one of the overall most solid units ever since she got that first initial buff. She's always been good. Is that still true today?
Yes and no. So to preface, there's two things. One, this is by far the best unit on my account. And two,
really?
Yeah, this is by far the best unit on my account. 458 gear score.
458 gear score. I'm not super well versed on like how crazy that is. 458. Sweaty's in the chat. How good is that? Is that insane?
I would say usually about 410 gear score. I would consider it a pretty solid unit.
So 410 is good or very good, and you're 458.
Yeah.
So every gear would you say is like almost perfect?
Pretty close. I think Yeah, so a perfect piece of gear, right, at level 90 is 85 gear score. The sword is 76, helmet is 82, chest is 78. The neck is where she's weak, it's 67. The ring is 78, I think, and the boots are 74 or 76.
Okay. Damn. That's crazy.
Yeah, so
76
so
is her average chat saying, yep.
Yeah, she's simultaneously a very mid strong but not too strong unit, or the best unit in the game, depending on how you play this game.
Very true.
So for me, I play with a Bellion pre-ban, and when you pre-ban a Bellion, right, it actually just like full awakens your Stenny, and she goes into sicko mode. Because there's one less unit that has like default reach versus your Spectre Tenebria, and two, your book is unlocked, which gives you some of the best turn one comboing in the game.
True. And you're also just a cleaver too, so banning Bellion is a kind of win-win for your account, right?
Oh yeah, pretty much. As an aggro player, I would say like a good amount of aggro players, by default bans Bellion.
Okay.
And like going to next season, right? So if you're like me, where your account is very good in the mid range, but you don't play too well slow, nor do you play too well too fast, right?
Yeah.
What I plan to do next season is I pre-ban Bellion, I pre-ban Ran. You cannot play too slow versus me, nor can you play too fast. Welcome to mid range.
Okay, so we're calling it. So yeah, mid range. So not cleave. Would you call it like mid range aggro? What's the term?
I would say I play mid-range aggro. Like, I don't exactly play standard anymore, nor do I play like too committed into aggro.
You can pivot to a lot of these different styles.
Yeah, that's a cool part about my account, right? Like, I've been playing for a long time. I spend a little bit of money, and I just have options.
All right, Valk, just tell us what's the number, what's the damage, if you don't mind sharing.
What's the damage? About 15K, I think.
In US dollars?
Yeah.
Holy. Well, it got him the best spec 10 in the world. Valk, talk to us about the Unity set.
Oh, okay. So this is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Back when the immunity set was the king of the game, right? Mm-hmm. I just had this sitting on my Terranor guard in expeditions, and for the longest time, I'm just sitting there like, man, I wish how I can use this on a PvP set. And then a few things in the game happened, right? Kara fell off, and AoE heroes kind of fell off a bit, so she got moved from lifesteal to speed set. And then Rimuru came up, so any unit that no longer requires immunity will be on an alternative set. And I was like kind of just playing with my gear one day, and I was like, wait, these gear are kind of cracked. I could put this on a Stenny, and she's going to be like 450 something gear score. And on top of that, if I play her a lot with units like Hand Guy, who's going to be S1 spamming, she's going to just dual attack. And Stenny has probably the second most toxic dual attack in the game next to Landy. I'm like, wait, this is the way. We run this. Mm-hmm. So this is how I ended up with this build.
Yeah, it's kind of becoming more and more popular, guys, the two-piece Unity. Maybe because, one, like Valk said, her S1 is so powerful, and two, the need for immunity on a lot of units has kind of just fell off. And if you don't need Penset either, hey, those dual attacks can win you games, right, Valk?
100%. Yeah, I've been clutched out by my Stenny last day more than a handful of times.
All right, Valk, last thing before we move on, the skin, better than the default? Obviously 100%. You're using it, my man. All right, next, Politis. Politis is very, very pivotal to cleave and aggro players, right?
100%, yeah. And I would even say to standard players, if you really want to succeed in like modern day Epic 7, mm-hmm. Do yourself a favor and learn to play Politis, right?
Interesting.
If you don't play it like too aggressively, and you don't like to, you don't like to take the risk with this type of hero, right? Because she doesn't have any survival mechanics.
Yeah.
What you can do is actually build yourself a bruiser Politis and just learn to practice with her. But ultimately, I would say having a full damage Politis is probably the best if you know how to play around her.
Yeah.
Having high damage is very high risk, high reward. And having a bruiser one, I would say, is like maybe low to medium risk, low to medium reward.
Okay. Makes sense. But very pivotal to, you're kind of saying, a broad range of play styles. That's a good point, because if you try to run a very aggressive one like Valk's in a standard lineup in a bruiser play in a matchup, you're going to just have a Ravi food. She's just gonna kill it and potentially bring something back. So yeah, you do need to build tankier if you want to play slower, and then if you're playing more aggro like Valk. Is this the stat line you like?
Yeah, so I like her to be 220 speed, as much damage as I can, and I don't care about bulk. If she dies, she dies.
All right, sounds good. Valk, you said this unit coming up she used to be one of the best in the world, stat-wise?
Yeah, she used to have like 300 more attack with about 2-3 more speed.
Okay, and why did she get her gear stolen from her then?
So one of the things I love about Operator Sigrid, especially a speed one, right, is that she is arguably the best Bryceria enabler in the game when there's an FCC on board.
Best Bryceria enabler.
Yeah, so when FCC's on board and her S3 cannot be resisted, right, she's guaranteed to strip every single immunity on the opponent's team, and your Bryceria will basically have free reign. And if your Wall of Order procs, right, you get a kill for free, because I marked this out. As long as it's not a Proof of Valor a Ravi, the moment my Wall of Order procs, I can kill anything else in the game.
Got it. Okay.
No, maybe not with this current build, but when she had 300 more attack, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, so when you can pick out one really good target on the enemy team, right? And most of the time, that's going to be their AOL or Rimuru, or if they don't have either one of those, it's going to be one of their revivers, right? You pick off one of those, you slam your S3, your Bryceria will basically bomb 2 of them, and then the third one you can manually bomb. So it's a very good matchup if somebody wants to use FCC to tank down against Bryceria. But towards the end of the season, as we discussed earlier, Bryceria fell off a little bit. So
your need for
Operator Sigrid just got nerfed a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on to the next one. Spirit Eye Celine at plus 15. Not triple S, though. Single S. Still good. Valk, this is a unit where she'll sometimes take over matches, but kind of like you were saying with Politis, could be risky for a lot of players, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing with her is that against my main playstyle, which is kind of a little bit between aggro and standard, where I draft a lot of Apoc Ravi, a lot of Spectre Tenebria, this is kind of where she shines, right? Because she can just kind of face tank those heroes, only lose half her health, hit back, and then steal back up, right?
Sure.
She's probably the worst character I am playing against. I think I lose more games to her than any other hero during the regular season. So I wanted to make sure I build a good one and learn how to play her and learn how to counter her.
But for your playstyle, how often would you say you pick her? Especially
last week, pretty much none. She has gear because I wanted to practice playing her. That's
okay, but for other players, she's good into your kind of playstyle, correct?
Yeah, if I'm not full cleaving, she's very strong.
Got it, because of the units you mentioned, like the Apoc Ravi. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like doing, right? Which is when I get stuck on something, because my account has almost every hero and a lot of gear, I can just build a hero that I don't know how to play against and spam them and see how other players deal with me. And that's generally the chief way I learn.
Guys, I wish I could also just build up every unit to learn to play. That would be insane knowledge. It's the best way to learn. But Valk, is that also why we're at the 15K price point? Is that maybe a little bit?
I mean, if you have the expendable income, and you like the game as much as I do,
yeah,
why not?
No shame. It's just something most players probably cannot do. However, remember what Valk said at the start? Why he's so successful? This is probably one of those reasons. All right, Valk, Fairy Tale Tenebria. Up next, 227 speed.
So this is another one of what I consider my hot swap techs. If you want to go into Equipment Manager, hit speed and hit set. Her gear with Judge Kisei's gear is completely interchangeable because her and Judge Kisei have very similar base stats.
Jay Kisei, for the ring, you said?
No. Every single one of their gear.
Oh.
So both of their builds are completely interchangeable because they have very similar base stats. And what happens is if for playing against top players, if I get them with this kind of like a cheese Spectre Tenebria, right, or my Judge Kisei, I'll immediately go swap their gear, and then I'll play it the other way around. So, for example, my Fairy Tale Tenebria is 230 full DPS, and my Judge Kisei is a 270 speed control unit. And I'll just go swap their gear back and forth whenever I feel like. And I've done that a fair share of times.
Sure.
But kind of going into last week, my Judge Kisei needed to be fast. So last week, I really didn't swap all that much.
Sounds good. How often did you use her, though, last week?
Last week, not at all, because Hand Guy, which is kind of out in full force, I didn't always get Hand Guy. I would say she's very hard to play against Hand Guy, but when you have the Hand Guy, which, if you don't have Hand Guy, I'm sorry, she's very strong because the enemy usually don't have ways to deal with her if they don't have res or cleansers.
Yep. All right. Next, A. Coley.
So A. Coley's not really play. She's just kind of gear holding. If you want to do this real quick, open up the hero pool filters and just check locked heroes.
Let's do that after Valk is gonna mess it. Well, I guess we can remember where we're at in the CP. So what did you want me to check?
Yeah, so check locked heroes only at the bottom left corner.
Yep. And
so this is a neat little trick I learned from Korean Jesus, and I would only advocate for doing this if you're very serious about playing RTA and you have 30 to 40 plus heroes.
Yeah.
And then 2, I would only do this if you are not prone to butterfingering things because it's kind of risky, right? What this involves is you have to unlock every single non-RTA hero, and then what this will help you do is when you're in a draft and you're kind of getting dizzy, right? Because sometimes, let's be honest, we all get dizzy drafting sometimes, and you lock only your RTA heroes, and when it comes down to it, you just kind of scroll through your RTA heroes and hope and hope like a good solution comes to you.
So you're saying in the draft you lock the ones that are most relevant, your RTA main ones, and then you're using that as an extra filter, correct?
Yes.
Okay, guys, advanced tech. All right, there you go. Where were we at? So we were at Acoli not really being used. This one though, Valk, I know you are 100% using, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, tell us about the Hua Young with plus 30 Merciless Glutton, A rank imprint.
Yeah, Hua Young's one of those heroes where, being prepared and doing your homework really paid off, because a week from the end of the season, I was, I was fribbling my account and I was completely re-gearing. And I got to the bottom of the list, and I'm like, what type of Hua Young I can make? I wonder. So I kind of fribbled the gear, and I took a good amount of like premium gear and leftover gear. I'm like, wait, she can hit 7k attack? So I immediately went on the maths damage calculator. I plugged in my numbers. I plugged it in against my own A Ravi, and I was like, oh no. This hero's OP with an attack buff. There's no way an A Ravi survives her. Oh no. Last day is going to be a different game. Oh no. The meta's about to change. Oh my god. So I immediately just hit up a few close friends. I was like, guys, keep this under wraps, but this hero is going to be insane. So we started theory crafting around her. We started testing her. The day she came out, my gear was ready. My catalysts were ready. My runes were ready. My molas were ready. And I just ran it down as much as I can. And then for last day, she was like so dominant against slower tank down players. Like, if you did not pre-ban her or have an answer ready for her, like, you were going to get boomed.
Yeah. I don't know how I still made it out of there live. This was, guys, 2 days before the end of the season. What the heck was Smilegate thinking, man? Anyways, Valk, I like it. It's the abuse or be abused mentality. And hey, so she was very good. This lineup, the stat line, very, very nice. Would you change anything, or is this where you like it?
I generally like it. I know people prefer lower HP, but since I like to, pivot into standard, her being decently tanky is actually really good.
Yeah.
And my artifact of choice is a Merciless Glutton, because if I'm playing her in an aggressive style and she actually manages to kill something, which most of the time she will, you CR push your entire team, and it makes your team very comfortable and consistent to play with, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
And as I said in the beginning, it's all about comfort. She's one of the 5 heroes where by the time I got to my last game, I'm playing for the season with like 3 minutes left on the clock. I'm like, I know I'm going to pick Hua Young here. I know I'm going to pick Spectre Tenebria here.
Yep, true. Okay. There's the Hua Young take, boys. Next up, BBK, who, Valk, I would expect you do use somewhat, right?
I use her, I would say, a handful of amount throughout the season. Not so much last day, just because Cleave is less relevant. She's a very good hero with Flan. And when I'm playing against cleavers, I know they like to pick BBK as a standard DPS because 1, she cannot be countered. 2, she gets an extra turn to close out revive units like Arby. So for me, I like to pick her as a takeaway, as in both an anti-cleave unit and as a cleave unit.
Okay, so you use her to steal sometimes, but not used too often. All right, next up, Celine Valk. This one a hot topic lately. We've talked on stream many times about how her buffs were crazy. Everyone was super excited, but a lot of players can kind of play around her. What do you think about Celine, especially now that the season's over?
Yeah, so when she first got buffed, I saw the list of buffs. I was like, wow, this is the best buff in the entire batch. Absolutely amazing. And then I realized, one of my guildmates, Wind Demon, was like, bro, you realize you can just, when you get into game, like click open the hourglass, hold her S2 and just read which EE she has, and then play around her that way. Because when you have an EE, it changes your skill text, right? And I was like, oh, that's all you have to do? Oh, never mind. She's a useless unit then. And most of the time, we just played around her that way.
Another pro tip, guys. You got to be fast, right? You got to check the hourglass quickly. Hover over her skill 2, and it'll change the text depending on which EE she's on. If she's on the stealth one, it'll say that. That's what Valk's saying. So she's a lot easier to play around for the higher end players. But besides that, Valk, would you say that alone makes her not very useful?
So
did you still play her?
You can. If we still have the time, feel free to go back to the rest of my units, right? A lot of cleavers, what they do is they will sequence their attack order, right? And this is something I kind of was clued in on as well, going into my last week re-gear. So what happens is if you check my attack order, it should look something like this. Just in terms of attack, right? It's like, I think Hua Young, Bryceria, BBK, Bryceria. Those units have the most attack compared to any other DPS on my account.
Sure.
All other DPS should have, especially cleave DPS, should have less attack than them. And against highest attack EE Celine's, basically she'll target those units first, and then the rest of my DPS, like Ida, the slightly more vulnerable ones, Green Vildred, would have less attack than these heroes.
Okay, Valk, I'm just adjusting mic. We had just a comment that the mic volume might not be super equalized, but yeah. So that's the attack lineup. Anything else you want to talk about on Celine?
Not really. I think she's a pretty okay unit, but at the highest level, if like good players know how to play against her, she kind of loses a lot of her shine.
Got it. Is that a little bit better, chat? For the microphones? Okay. So yeah, just like I was thinking, boys, not quite as good after the buff. Still usable, but there are ways to play around it and work around it. Rylet Valkyria, what do we think about the most controversial, one of the most controversial units in terms of how people think he needs buffs or is fine or maybe even needs nerfs? What do you think?
I feel like Rylet kind of has like this awkward quality about him, similar to how like a Kayron would have, where it's just every patch you feel like he gets a little bit worse just because the way he functions, right? Which is that he relies on one, his passive, and two, he relies on having an evasion buff.
Right.
So over time, there's just going to be more buff strip heroes in the game. Over time, there's going to be more heroes that kind of deal with certain passive abilities in the game. Yeah. And when his passive and his evasion buff kind of gets put in a check, he just loses a lot of power. In like slower matchups though, if I don't get to play aggro, I don't get to play cleave, I still like to have him as long as I'm not playing against C. Lilius AOL.
It just seems like most of the new units, guys, especially the meta ones, have like something in their kit to counter him, which kind of is unfortunate. It seems like every unit nowadays has something to stop him, but he's still very relevant. Valk, how often did you say you use him in the season?
First half of the season, especially last preseason, I used him a lot.
I think a lot of players did.
With this type of stat spread, what I like to do is I post-ban their mitigator, and I just one-tap their Ruel.
Right. But then near the end, did you stop? You started using a little bit less because of the strong openers?
Yeah, he fell off for me like completely when I started cleaving and playing aggro, basically.
Okay, fair enough. All right, speaking of, well, not speaking of anything, but one of the 7 great disasters, Rimu. Valk, anything to say about this terror? Look at his smile, boys. He kind of ruined the game for a lot of players, and he's just smiling away. What do you think, Valk?
He ruined the game for me last season, certainly. So this season, I made it a point to make sure, no matter what, my team always has 1, 2, sometimes even 3 answers to him. So for this season, I draft Bryceria, I drafted AOL, I drafted, and now like the reverse, right? I drafted my Clevelandy, and now he's kind of a non-factor. But when I play like mid-range versus mid-range versus standard, and sometimes mid-range versus like slower playstyle, I definitely like to pick him. And for me, since I play aggressive, I kind of make him decently squishy. He could survive like 2 hits, I think.
Sure.
And then he does enough damage to just like chunk things.
Okay. So he was tough for you. You made a lot of answers, and then sometimes you'll pick him in certain matchups, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. Luna, any play?
Luna... So I have her on like usable gear, but
yeah, it's on a speed pen, but not really. Be honest.
Yeah, not really. There's so many single target nukers in the game, and I don't know. I don't look to Luna too often when I try to kill something nowadays. She just doesn't feel like she has that oomph factor anymore.
I mean, she does have an oomph factor, but maybe not gameplay wise, right?
Hard agree.
True. SSB, is this Wyvern only? This
That's
looks
my
like a Wyvern
SSB.
unit. Okay. Mercedes
is a X-Boat unit now. I think at 208 speed. Fully reforged, she should be like 211. Or actually, never mind. This is a fully reforged. She should be around 210 or so. Still playable with like standard DPS, but
normally just...
right now she's like very awkward to draft just because of Rimuru again.
Sure. Okay, so just Expos for Valk right now. Lionheart. Uh-oh, Valk. What is this? Sigurd's Scythe? Speed set. And the stat line, we got a little ER. Bulk looks good. Speed looks good. Crit damage, all right. Tell us about this build, and how often did you pick her?
When she first came out, I wasn't super high on her because it just felt like she did nothing against faster teams, right?
Sure.
Going into the end of the season, when like mid-range team got more answers, she started picking up more and more steam. And for a lot of people who kind of wrote her off when she got released, they really crept up on her, right? Because in a standard versus standard matchup, no matter what, at some point, somebody's going to counterattack, somebody's going to have an extra attack, somebody's going to dual attack, like almost for certain, right? When that happens, especially like if you play against C. Lilius, she can avoid dual attacking you on her first rotation, but after that, she's going to activate your Lionheart Cermia. And when that happens, you're just going to eat them alive.
I think she is very dependent on what your opponent brings, but like Valk was saying, guys, there were so many meta units, and I don't know if I would draft her, Valk, though, just depending on like a dual attack, because I know Mr. Elfmage in chat might have done that. He loves when people dual attack against his Cermia, but there's just so many meta units that have a counter duel, whatever it is. Yeah, she was very relevant for me. But you did use her near the end? Is that what you said?
I used her maybe like usually as a force ban. If I have to play standard and I know they have a C. Lilius, I drop her 5th. They usually have to ban her, or else they just expect to lose.
Okay, so not like a mainstay for your draft, but sometimes she will be relevant.
Yeah, and she's also one of the heroes I struggle to play against because Spectre Tenebria is such a core part of my draft. And my Spectre Tenebria happens to be on Unity set. So a lot of times I will just lose a stray game because my Spectre Tenebria is like, just like, all right, let me activate their Cermia real quick and die.
Yep. All right. Next up is Flurry. Any play?
Expo unit. So anything that's not locked is a PvE unit or gear holder.
Okay. So we can kind of hover over those pretty quickly. T. Crozet, though, he is locked, and he's on the S3EE, of course. 30 Holy Sack. Anything quick to say about him? Did you bust us out versus Cleavers?
Yeah, this is my Minister of Defense. So when I get cleaved and I'm like, oh no, we must enter defense mode. He is the first unit I look to draft.
When you get out aggroed. Okay. Well, the stat line looks great. 100 ER. Very fast and good bulk. Yeah. I think that's everything
you park
you want on
a really tanky unit behind him, right? So for example, if you're getting damage cleaved, you park an APOC Ravi behind him. A lot of times, even with a defense break, he'll survive depending on who they're slamming into your APOC Ravi. You park a Maid Chloe behind him. Basically, you will never die to a Caesarea cleave when you have a good Maid, especially a Maid Chloe like mine behind this type of Troublemaker Crozet, because when they get hit 1 time or 2 times, he's just going to push himself to the top. And then CR push, the unit he's protecting, and you can just start slamming your revives. You can start slamming your counter damage, whatever it is.
Sure, yeah. Okay. Senya is locked, Valk.
Senya, yeah. I like to pick her as a 5th.
Yeah.
So I like to pick her in the same spot, which is on 5th, as Lionheart Cermia, when I know I have to play against Rems and Violets.
Okay. Against the Remlet squad, of course. Very good. Do you ever bust her out? Have you fought any Strays? Did she ever come out in that matchup? Not really.
She's not really a good Strays counter for me. What I use as a Strays counter is actually my Troublemaker Crozet. He's on a Holy Sack specifically because of the Strays.
Ah, okay.
So he would usually tank the hit from the Strays and just revive.
So Senya mostly just for the Rem Violets. Good. Okay. Next up is Ran, and Valk, this is very important to your play, your account, your entire being. Or not so much?
I would say less so. I just like to have one geared. My default when I like to cleave is I like to pick Peyra. I know Ran usually offers a little bit more in the sense of defense break.
Yeah, I thought Peyra was the
Stigma
backup.
helps a lot. But for me, I really pick Ran when I don't get the option to play Peyra, because Peyra can be played into standard. Ran is almost exclusively aggressive / cleave.
Peyra is more versatile. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the speed is still good. Chat is saying 71 crit chance, Valk, but he's your backup. He's your optional unit.
Yeah, this honestly is all I can afford. And throughout most of the season, he's prioritized lower than my Operator Sigrid. It's actually one of my accounts, like, not too well-known secrets. Just that way, like, he still has the speed. He has the damage when he does crit. I don't really rely on my units, like if one of my units misses a crit, it's whatever. I don't rely on that to win.
Sure. Okay. Tenebria, we pass. Holiday Euphine is locked, but is she actually getting busted out versus what? Fairy Tales and Bazaars?
Yeah. So Bazaar is actually a pretty common counter pick when people pick Peyra standard. So if they take a Peyra to protect against cleaves and to set up a mitigator for standard, when you see that, or like when I do that, people like to, especially like super high-end players, like to just throw in a Bazaar just to kind of complicate the draft.
Yeah.
And in that case, I like to pick a Euphine, and she's decent against Ran like 70% of the times, all the time. So, to quote, my friend Knack, So I still, I have the account. I have the gear to keep her geared.
Yeah, she
but,
is. The
it
gear
doesn't come out super often.
The stat line is pretty nice. Okay, for a backup unit. So against Bazaars, and then you said sometimes Ran, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wait, is this a second plus 15 Politis?
Yes, sir.
That's the first, guys. I think this is the first time we've seen a second. Like usually we'll see a second SSB, second RB or something, but this is the first. That's a lot of molas. All right, Val, tell us about this. Of course, this is a counter and Abyssal Crown. Your other build was faster, more damage, and on Tagahel's the book.
Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about when I say, like, if you don't know how to play a Politis, build a Bruiser one, right? Build one like this. If you can't afford one like this, all right, build one on speed set. If you can't afford these stats on the speed set, right, cut down your damage a little bit. Cut down crit damage, right? Just have the attack and the crit chance. Just to kind of like hold up the illusion you're doing damage. The idea you want to have with this hero is that you want to choke out your opponent from pressing their support skills, right? Because against Cleave, like she was designed against Cleave, sure. But if you really think about it, every comp to some degree runs a certain amount of non-attacking skills. Standard have supports.
Of course.
Slower comps have Soul Weavers. And she happens to counter all of that. So what you do is you just slap a crown on her. You make her decently tanky, and you make the illusion that she has to be killed like now before they press any buttons. So this type of comp really makes it awkward to play like the way your opponent wants to play, and that's I think her biggest strength. So which is why I think everybody should learn to kind of play Politis.
You said do that earlier, and if you want to take it to the next level, like Valk, have two Politis for both playstyles you mentioned. Jesus. All right.
I'm also an Arena Legend player, so no matter what, having a second Politis be on Crown, be slightly tankier is pretty helpful.
Valk, that flex just slapped me in the face. He's double time Legend, boys. Now RTA and Arena. My goodness. Tempest any play?
Tempest, not really.
Okay. I mean, it is what it is, right, Valk? Long time.
Yeah.
Let's just skip through the non-locked units. Oh God!
For sure.
Here we go, Valk. You said earlier it sucks to be you. Maybe was that verbatim? Sucks to be you, Car in chat. If you don't have hand guy, that's what he said earlier.
I said I'm sorry if you don't have this. Not like this.
Man. It's true. So Valk, talk to us. You kind of. I don't think you need to say anything. You said he has so many options. He's so good. You gave a 100 examples of where he's helping you, where he's hurting you. Anything else you want to say on the matter? Maybe just your own build.
Yeah, so the one thing is I don't like having him on immunity set. You might notice I specifically swapped off my chest piece to not have immunity.
Okay. Is that because of Rimu?
Yes. Because I think the best hand guy is a hand guy with options, right? That's the strongest thing about him.
Sure.
You could push your next unit if you can't press your S3, right? For example, a lot of times you're being choked out by a Politis, right? Reference to the last hero we were looking at. So if you want to CR push your units, right? Just a little bit, just a smidge. You can attack break an enemy nuker. You basically want to be able to have the options, and an immunity set makes it so that you can't do that against Rimuru.
Sure. All right, makes sense.
Yeah, and I sped him up a little bit on purpose at the cost of just like a little bit tank stats. He used to be a lot tankier at like 250 speed. That way I can play a little bit more aggressively, and I can raise some people's like slightly slower Kisei, their fire hand guy. That way, all I have to do is press S1 on one of their dudes, and one of my other units get pushed up, and I can counter nuke their team.
Okay. Dang. Must be nice. All right, let's keep moving on. Acid, next locked unit with plus 30 Manica. Usually you don't see this artifact too often. And 299 speed. Pretty standard Acid, right, Valk? Speed contester, and you use this to just give yourself that extra crit you need.
Yeah. So I think like if you have trouble with top speed and going to full crit, he already gets like 18% crit or something, or like a 14 or 18 crit from his self imprint.
Right. So
you just put him to like 84, 85 crit, and then you put a Manica on him. He's pretty nice. I was told like, oh, if you can't build like a 310 Acid or a 305 Acid, don't even bother having one for Legend.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually saved me a good handful of times from like just being a fire hand guide on the last day.
There you
go. And you really don't need the best gear on him as long as you have one.
Yeah.
Right? You might not even need to put gear on him, right? But what I always tell my viewers is 6-star awaken him, and then when you have to pick him, right? When you know you have to pick an ACID, a speed contester, you slam him as quickly as you can to show your opponent you're confident in this unit, and they have to ban him.
Game, yeah. Like I was waiting for that. You just fell into my trap and lock. He could be naked, but he's fully awakened to give the illusion. I will say though, guys, if you can try to make him like Valk is saying, this still worked for him at Legend. If you can get him to like 280, 290 for Champ, you're probably okay. People are pushing speed like crazy though, so if your opponent calls your bluff, you know, make sure you have some speed on him. But yeah, I like that. I like that tech. All right, moving on. We got Crow. How often did he get any play?
So he's not that much of a unit anymore because of injury. Injury just destroys him way too hard, right?
Yep.
But because I pre-ban Bellion and I pick Apoc Ravi relatively aggressively throughout most of the season, and what I notice is when you have Spectre Tenebria, you have Apoc Ravi and Crow.
Jesus, triple
once again becomes the best knight in the game.
Sure.
So
because he has the defense up, the Aureus plus the big S3 nuke, and you took away
a Ravi gets him a lot of HP to absorb, and the Spectre Tenebria makes sure that your opponent has to draft some type of AoE, and when they have an AoE,
yeah, true.
That horse is coming.
All right, I like that, guys. So kind of a specific lineup. He's right though. If you don't ban Bellion, if you don't pick Apoc Ravi, a lot of times, right, his S3 becomes just pretty much nullified. But Val kind of made a playstyle where he's really good. I like that. And he's triple S. This is a very nice stat line.
Yeah, also shoutouts to Vinny. You always run Crow on Team Imprint. That gives your team more HP for him to absorb to horse.
Oh, little tech. All right. Next up, Sage Ball. He is
Sage
locked
Ball.
up. Yeah, and he's got your proof.
Yeah, so I should also have a hot swappable tech in that artifact. I have a plus 15 copy of Bastion of Hope for him.
Just to make that extra ER when you need it?
Yeah, this is my third Minister of Defense. When I know I'm getting cleaved, he's usually coming out third or fourth.
Yeah.
And usually he's just there to be annoying, very hard to deal with.
Does he usually have? I feel like you want the Bastion, right, to make sure that he resists.
Yeah, it depends on how you're being cleaved based on the meta and the day, right?
Oh, okay.
If you're dying more to single target nukers and AoE nukers in general, he's pretty good on proof. If you're kind of getting Caesarea bombed a lot on a given day, then you want your Bastion of Hope on him.
Okay, that makes sense. You got a little artifact swapping. Conqueror Lilius, the Terror, plus 30 border coin. I see a Rage set, broken set, 294 speed, very standard stat line. Right? Anything else you want to talk about this unit? The first pick, you said you swap between Para and her. I mean, Valk, is there anything we need to say about her? Really?
Anything you need to say about her?
She's insane.
Not really. She's one of like the best initiators in the game. I think for me, she falls underneath Para because I have Hand Guy. For players with Hand Guy, I think Para is more valuable. For players without Hand Guy, I think Conqueror Lilius is more valuable.
Got it. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, she's one of the best, and you got those. Effectiveness though, Valk, would you like to get that a little bit higher? She kind of had your backup gear.
I personally think because she falls under my Para, right? I think she needs to be tankier just because of the way she's normally played.
Okay.
Compared to a Para, which Para doesn't really need any bulk, which is kind of like, geez, she could cheat out so many stats.
Yeah, kind of busted. All right.
Yeah, if you can have more, like obviously that's cool, but
it's good enough for you in
60-ish
Legend.
is good enough.
All right. I think mine is also there. Maid Chloe, she has your Bastion of Hope. Valk, did she actually come out? Because I feel like she's definitely been seen less and less.
Yeah, so I don't really rely on her too much for
Cleanse?
For like standard or aggro, right? I think to play aggro with her, you need her at 250. But this stat line makes her basically impossible to Caesarea. I remember playing against somebody who tried to Caesarea me. He soul burned his Caesarea. She resisted her bomb, so he soul burned a bomb into me, and then he like stopped for a second, and he like. Because he got resisted, right?
Yeah.
So he soul burned his book into me, and then he got resisted, and he immediately just forfeited the fight.
Yeah.
So
sounds
having
like
a good mate Chloe makes it impossible to get Caesarea.
Sounds good, but unfortunately, well, not fortunately or unfortunately, we're seeing a lot less of Caesarea. Correct, like you said earlier. Okay, Tywin is locked too. Val, quick thoughts on him? 85 chest piece though.
He's kind of a fossil unit, so I'm not putting like my most premium gear on him.
He's a fossil.
But if I'm playing like standard and my opponent is somehow like playing some type of like Sage Ball, I'm not playing too fast, right? If I play Para first and they think I'm cleaving and they drop a Sage Ball or something like that,
Okay.
this is where I just like to put in an A Tywin and just let him be annoying.
Sure. Next up, Amelia, probably very important, right? 250 speed, the very nice stat line. 210
This Amelia is actually my MVP on the last day of RTA.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So because like I would say Emperor and Legend player are trying to speed up their hand guys, right? 250 usually goes directly right after a hand guy, right? My own hand guy 268. Certain other players run 260 plus, other guys run 255 plus, right? I ran 255 plus for the longest time. And what happens is when you fight a hand guy, you let him take his turn, right? If he attack breaks you or if he buffs you or he buffs himself, right? Your Amelia just pushes any one of your nukers, and you can kind of do whatever you got to do to his team. You get to use one skill before his team will pop off on yours, and if you know how to work around that, it's usually a very powerful pick. And on top of that, right, having the res makes her very valuable against C. Lilius, against Peyra, and to sometimes, like, this isn't the highest res in the game, right? But depending on how you imprint, right? So if I have to play against AOL with this Amelia, I like to use a CC team imprint. I like to use Rimuru team imprint. Just basically stack FRES imprints to the point where she can challenge people's Angel of Light as well.
Yeah, sure. Because you got the artifact. You said you team-wide imprint, and you're at base 210 while still having decent bulk, good bulk, and then 250 speed. That's pretty crazy. I like that.
Yeah,
very, very nice.
I can't explain why, but last day, right, essentially when I played this Amelia, she was at like a 82% win rate or something like that.
Jesus.
And when I paired her with my Spectre Tenebra, she went up to like 90-something% win rate. I only lost one game when both of those units are on the same team.
Okay, well, that's kind of crazy. Green Violet. Anything to say about him other than he's just he is what he is?
He's my last line of defense against Bryceria Cleave.
Is he one of the ministers?
I wouldn't say he's a minister because sometimes he's not the best. Like, so against Bryceria, you really want that immunity, right?
Sure.
Which is why I don't advocate for pen set Green Violet anymore.
Yeah.
But if people find a way to cleave you with C. Lilius, right? Like C. Lilius, Ida, Bryceria, in that case, he's not the best defense unit. But you definitely want to have one geared. And I like to lean HP heavy right now because a low HP Violet will just die to Hua Young on a miss.
True. All right. Last Rider Crow. Quick thoughts.
I originally conceptualized him to be played as a aggro mitigator, right? He's like mid fast speed. He slams the enemy team for like maybe 15k HP combined, and he mitigates some damage. And then I realized I already have an aggro mitigator. Her name is Peyra, and she's a lot better.
Oh god, Peyra. So Peyra meta crept your idea for Last Rider Crow. Pretty much. Okay. Jake Kisei.
Judge Kisei, if you have one and you can build with this stat line, right? Very, 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 very strong against hand guy, Rimuru, even AOL. Like those, I would say 250 speed, whatever you would expect to be 260 or slower, and things that don't run effectiveness resistance. She's just so valuable. Whenever I pulled her out on the last day, she was either force banned or straight up won me a game.
I like it. So, and then you said this is also you swap out between her and, was it Fairy Tail? Is that correct?
Yeah, so her gear and Fairy Tail's gear are perfectly interchangeable. So if my opponent are wisening up to the tech, I just swap their gear, and they play a completely different style now.
Got it. All right, let me show the chat real fast. I was replying. Someone in chat is giving some of your tech full ER poly, apparently. Valk, you don't need to comment on that. Ruel up next. Is she played by the aggro man himself?
No. I played her a lot towards the end of last season and beginning of this season because I was just so lost at how to play the game.
But
I think if the game is a lot slower, she's very valuable, especially in a single target heavy meta like we had in the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Now the game is so fast paced, it feels like she almost doesn't match up. But a lot of times, if you know how to draft her, especially like when you're decently bulky, she's such a force.
Sure. Okay. Maybe she'll come back. Researcher Carrot, who is gaining stocks. What do you think about this unit, Valk? Stat line, very standard. Looks good.
Yeah, so I basically build her slightly faster, very high attack. I don't go for that much bulk because I don't expect her to survive. Thing about her is because I like to give content and I like to help people play. If you ever get put in a position where somebody is playing a Cleave Landy into you and you have the Rimuru and you're kind of stuck in that draft, right? What you do is you slam a carrot on, and usually Cleave Landies are designed to just survive the Rimuru. So if the Cleave Landy eats a carrot burn and she hits her extra turn, she will just die.
Just a little extra tech, boys. There you go. Silverblade Araminta is unfortunately she's plus 15, but not locked, guys. That means we pass on her. Watcher Shuri. I mean, speed imprint, very strong single target nuke. Anything else to say about him?
Not much.
About Predator, right?
Like he's a default pick for like a lot of imprinted single target cleave just because of that artifact. That artifact is incredibly strong.
Sash, okay, of course, yeah. CR. APOC Ravi, Valk, you said you picked her a lot. Let's see the stat line. Crimson Seed plus 30. A rank imprint plus 15 Mola. Okay, very high health, good crit damage. We're a little light on the attack, but we make up for that with the crit damage and health and good defense. Yeah. Speed.
So the thing I like to always tout about APOC Ravi is if you play a longer game, you need higher attack. If you play aggressively and you only need her to slam the S3, high HP and high crit damage is the way to go. Because that's just the way she scales. If you need her S1 to hit, especially on a counter set, I recommend like going 2k attack. But if you're like me, you play aggressively, you just need the S3 to slam, you can kind of stack her attack a little bit just for the high HP and high crit damage.
Yeah.
I picked her very aggressively all season, but I dropped her almost entirely last day to bait my opponent into picking her so I can slam a Huayang and to kind of like choke them in the draft.
Got it. So that's what the health was for, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Valk, we got to keep moving because we're still above 130k CP, or just about breaking it now, and we are still going strong, man. You have too many units, all with gear.
Yeah, sorry, I have like 70 PvP units geared.
My God, 7 guys. For RTA, people recommend for starting out like 8, 10, 12 units, right? Valk has 70 ready to go. Valk, quick thoughts on Solitaria.
Solitaria, Crown's very strong on her, but she's basically one of the best 5th picks in the game, depending on how you like to play and what your opponent picks into you. I just have one geared. I think I might try a ER variant going into next season, but so far I think like she's strong enough that no matter how you build her, she'll be good.
Sounds good. All right, AOL, the Terror.
Still a terrorist unit. You just kind of need gear on her. No matter how you play her, I think she'll do work.
Sure. All right. Stat line a little bit lower stats than I would expect from you, Valk, but maybe you don't pick her that often. I mean,
yeah,
it's still good.
She's really on like 6th or 7th string effectiveness gear.
Yeah, okay. But like he said, as long as she has something on, she'll do some work. Diane though, Valk, I feel like I haven't seen her in very long. Any comments on her?
I think she's like my 7th or 8th attack buffer. I play relatively aggressively, so every attack buffer needs to be like at least 240 speed as a bottom line.
The 8th attack buffer, guys. My God. Para, this one definitely we'll pause for a second because he said he uses her a lot. Interesting that you like the Goblet of Oath, and then let's see the stat line. 307 speed, good effectiveness, especially with the Goblet 2. And he said she doesn't really care too much about bulk because of the way her barrier works. Anything else you want to talk about on the Paravel?
I think Goblet of Oath is by far the best artifact on her because it lets you permanently cycle her S3, which is her best skill.
Okay.
Outside of that, originally I didn't think she was an effectiveness unit, right? So I think like, units like C. Lilius, Rand don't need top effectiveness because top effectiveness only helps you challenge, I would say mid-res Soul Weavers, right? Like stuff like Diane, Amelia, certain Amelias, not my Amelia. Ruel, right? Basically to kind of control them. But then I realized, wait, her S1 can stun, and if you soul burn, it's 100% proc rate.
Yeah.
Wait, if I can just stun Amelia's, Diane's, and Ruel's, like, she's kind of OP. Which is why I ended up putting an effectiveness ring on her.
Even when you don't have the soul burn Valk, she still has a pretty good shot.
Yeah,
but yeah,
100%.
All right, she's broken. We knew that. Little Queen Charlotte. Anything, Valk? Let's start shotgunning these.
Hell yeah. Little Queen Charlotte, I think triple set gives you the best like damage and value spread. I think she needs that immunity. Pen set is worth almost a destruction set on a LQC.
Okay.
For me, because I play aggro, she needs to be on speed boost. She needs to be fast, so her attack is a little bit scuffed, but that helps her cut faster units on the enemy's team if they take a turn and just push her up.
Makes sense. All right. FCC.
FCC is one of those units where
Bruiser
you can
build.
really tell my playstyle based on her stat line.
Yeah,
I
you
need her
went
to
for
be
damage.
30k HP to support standard, and I need her to have a little bit crit so that if she comes out and I'm trying to aggro down my opponent, she can just chunk them.
This is my favorite build, guys. I remember ever since seeing like Aether builds way, like almost like 2 years ago now. But just the 85 crit plus as much health, and yeah, I think Valk, this is very, very nice, man. I wish I could build something like this, but been working out well for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this build.
Okay. Moving on. Ravi! Oh my god, these are all unlocked! Dilibet!
Yep. Designer Lilibet. Okay, this build, shout out to Wind Demon. I
Who is in
basically
the
just
chat right
copied
now?
his build.
Yeah, we talked about him earlier with his Celine tech. What about this build, Valk? What's special about it?
So with this build, she has so much cutting power. Like, no pun intended, right? She's going to be able to CR push herself so much. And she's going to just be able to cut, your opponent's turn order. She just does so much on this build. And with like 300 crit damage and 2k defense, she's as good as a bruiser carry.
Interesting. Okay. I like it. All right, guys. Definitely a more aggro-oriented Dilibet. Valk, do you bust her out like a lot even if your opponent doesn't have too many debuffs? Or is it still just a debuff kind of pick?
Depending on what my plan of action is and how fast or slow, if I think I can contest, she might not come out, right, in terms of speed. But against like blatantly faster players, if they just drop something like a C. Lilius or a Pera, she comes out with my Politis.
Of course, yeah.
And it forms a combo to kind of pinch their C. Lilius and Pera.
Sounds good. All right. G-Perg, still locked, but I imagine probably not used too often nowadays.
He's a pocket pick against Charles Cleavers.
Okay. Specifically versus the Charles Cleave.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
and then he has no immunity just to make sure I don't activate Rimuru.
Yeah.
And yeah, so into Charles Cleave, I would pick him plus Bryceria. And that's like one of my core combos when I get Charles Cleaved.
Sounds good. Cerise unlocked. Is that because of Para?
Yep, pretty much.
Dang it. All right. Crimson Armament. Counter set. Because she's so easy to gear, you can pretty much put any set you want. Good enough effect resist. Speed tune assuming for your team. And then
yeah, she's slower than like pretty much every unit on my team except my SSB Rem and Bellion.
Sure. All right, so she's the last line of defense. And on counter. Okay, looks good. Fire Lilius. Are we doing some kind of cleave stuff, Valk? What is this for? Huayang cleave?
Yeah, so she had a pretty different build, but going to the off season, I forgot, but I changed up her gear a little bit to kind of make her a cleave unit. So like I said earlier, right, I really like to do different things just to push the limits of my account and the game and myself. So going to the off season, I'm going to be playing some type of single target cleave, specifically featuring our boy Green Sid. So she's going to be one of the units I include to kind of just add another layer of cleave into a cleave team.
Okay, sounds good. Meru. Oh god, Valk, the artifact's not maxed, but the stat line looks very good. Good enough.
Yeah, I don't like to play the style where it's like, you pick a counter unit and you wait for your opponent to get high rolled and then you win the game. So she doesn't have anywhere close to like my premium gear. So my best counter gears are all on my defense units basically, and she's not that great of a defense unit. But
you're not a big fan of the RNG inner kit, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I like to just seize a game and take it by myself and just win.
Sure, I think a lot of people underestimate that. Right side Mercedes, guys, she always high rolls, but when you use her, sometimes, yeah, I've heard that from a few players now. Not a huge fan of when her RNG isn't in your favor. All right, moving on.
But if you like to play a slower style, right, she's definitely one of the best DPSs in the game. I don't rate her super highly just because of a style difference.
I've even heard
if you play slower, she's amazing.
I heard some Soul players still also don't like her RNG. One of our previous reviews, Magic Chi, I think he told me that. RB up next, Valk. Oh wait, second RB. Does he see any play? We still got a DGen RB built?
Yeah. It's just because I have the RB already. I have the Molas and I have the gear. So he has gear, but this is what we like to call a
fossil.
Rem minus. He's like a Rem light essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Cartuja Fat Cat. Is this memes, MLM, or is this real? Did he actually see play on your legend climb?
Not on the legend climb, but throughout the season, if somebody wants to draft a Dice of Cringe type cleave, all I have to do is whip out an Assassin Cartuja and just let him sit there. He goes to work by sitting there.
Okay. An a dies of cringe type cleave, guys. Rwana, no need to comment on her, right, Valk? She does what she does when you need her. Anything else?
Yeah, as long as she has 6 pieces of gear, she'll do what she does.
Pillis is locked, Valk, but I'm offended that she has no... You didn't even... Valk, there's no mullet needed for her.
Yeah, I was like trying to get one, scrambling to get one out by the end of the season, but I'm a little bit slower on the uptake because all of my resources were just and attention was going towards Hua Young.
Sure, makes sense. The stat line looks good though for when you eventually want to awaken and skill enhancer. Acades, any play? I imagine for a player like you, it seems like you're using her for just the cleanse.
Actually, she's one of the best 5th pick in the game, alongside with Solitaria. So I would say she's really good against a certain style, right? And that would be tank down style, right? If you think about the way Magic Chi likes to draft, right? He would take like a mitigator, a support unit, a second support unit, or a second mitigator, right? In his first 3, which means on his 4th, he's privy to 1 DPS. And usually, right? Even for high end players, they make this mistake where their 4th pick, right? Their first DPS is a little bit too slow, or they're not high tempo enough. They don't do enough damage, right? What that does is you can just ban whatever it is they have on 5th. You pick Acades on your 5th plus a force ban, so they have to force ban the other unit. Your Acades will heal so much. Their 4th unit, their first DPS, right, will never be able to break through that healing, and you can just kind of farm them for free. It's just a little bit of a slower game, but she's so strong in that slot.
Valk, I don't like that tech though, because that seems very good against players like Magic Chi and me as well. Bellion up next, Valk. Counter, since you ban her, you never have to pick her.
I never have to pick her, but here's the thing. Against known cleave players, I will just ban Ran instead, which 1 unleashes a Bellion, and 2 it removes their Ran, right? And if they continue to cleave me, I pick this creature. And if she activates twice, if she counters 1 time, that's my opponent's half of their entire team's HP gone.
Sure.
If she counters twice, I win.
And Valk, I kind of also like the lack of speed boots because you are only using her in that very specific scenario, and so might as well. You're only relying on like either her getting hit or Elber's counters, right? So might as well just all her damage or her game plan is gonna be around the out of turn mechanics, so no need for speed, right?
Yeah, shout outs to Call. Call's like, this is basically a Rem. I thought about it, I was like, you're right, this is a Rem, so I just build her like a Rem.
True. Okay, haste. Any real fast, Valk. Let's start wrapping these up. Anything on
only
haste?
Used against Mate Chloe and only used against RB, but look at his neck and ring. That's I get people talked a lot at because of that, but
flat health and flat health, guys. You know, Valk, I'm glad you. So you would be using it if he was more meta, even with the flat health, right?
Oh no. So if you want to jam HP on a unit, right? Which on ML Haste and Blue Crow are probably 2 of the units. It's specifically better on ML Haste because his base HP isn't spectacular. Having a flat health main with high rolled HP is the best way to jam HP on a unit.
My man, use what you got. But he's saying it's even better than that. It's one of the best techs you can do for these specific units that want maximum health. Okay, Sinji, anything Sinful Angelica?
Yeah, this is the one I specifically wanted to bring to you and your boys. This is what I like to call dollar store hand guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you have a doctor's bag on her, right?
Yeah.
She with the newly buff S3, you just cleanse 2 debuffs. It's pretty good against C. Lilias. It's less good against Peyra because she lands the unbuffable second. Yeah. Which means like on certain units, if you have to cleanse both buffs, Doctor's Bag goes after, which means you don't get your buffs, which kind of sucks. But what she does in an aggro team is that she activates your Ida. And on top of that, she has an insane matchup into Apoc Ravi, into Mate, into RB because they can't revive. So if they smell that you're playing an aggro team and they use those units to counter you, you slam this instead of a hand guy, like she does even better than him. But she also has a distinct weakness of kind of once her 3 turns of power is up, she kind of feels really bad.
Yeah, that's like that's the dollar store part kicking in. Okay.
Yeah.
Charlotte seems pretty standard, right?
Yeah, I mean, I only have 1 symbol, so she gets to hold a sack.
Sure, still good enough. The second SSB, and this is the lifesteal build. It's ready to go. Valk, you dirty boy. You have one ready on top of the Wyvern one. Okay, but I would guess probably not too often. You don't pick her too often.
It really depends because SSB is one of those units that sometimes if your opponent commits a little bit on AoE units,
Yeah.
and units like Spectre Tenebria who relies on hiding,
Yeah.
You drop an SSB, she's basically a force ban, or she will single-handedly win you the game. Even if you draft a super slow unit in a aggro comp, sometimes if she activates, right?
Trust me, I know the power of SSB. I'm just surprised, Valk, at the fact that you have so many units and some duplicates of units. Guys, how long? Okay, Valk, let's keep.
I'm pretty much done. We have like 2 more.
All right, Rem. Any comments? We have Rem and Bellion Rem. This one looks good, very high health, and yeah, standard counter stat line. No immunity though. Have you found you like the crit set better?
Yeah, so it's for 2 reasons, right? One, she has a pretty bad matchup into Rimuru against aggro, especially when she counters, and with immunity, she'll activate a Rimuru. Bryceria fell off a little bit, so I'm not too worried about like not having immunity against Bryceria. And then point number 3 is like, if she doesn't demon mode, she's not really a unit anyway, so it's like immunity feels a little bit moot.
All right, sounds good, makes sense. Valk, okay, he was right, boys. Thank God. I thought. Not thank God, Valk, but man, there's just at one point I'm scared to release this to the players because then I don't even know how many other legend players have this. We've reviewed so many legend player accounts, Valk. This is like you have double. I feel like double the roster almost. Anyways, was there one more down here? I think that was it though. Was
There might have been one like above Rem, I think.
I think. Oh, Flan. I skipped over Flan real fast. Probably important for an aggro / cleaver.
Yeah.
Quick comments.
She's amazing on 5 if your opponent is not speed contesting you, or if you know you're banning their contester. She's basically like the buffs are way too valuable, and she allows you to activate Ida.
Sounds good. Oh, Chad is saying there is a Champ Z, but Valk, how often did he come out in the last end of the season?
I think he came out like 1 time the entire season.
I feel like there might be a little chance for him to come back here and there because of the way like aggro and cleave players are shifting their teams, but for the most part, usually they messed up, right? If Champ Z is a good option. Yeah.
They evoke. So if I draft aggro or cleave and my opponent has a good Champ Z game versus me, I overcommitted on debuffs.
Exactly. Yep. That's how we all view it. All right, Valk. Any closing thoughts? My God, man. Boys, Chad was saying Gear Score Kingdom. No kidding. Valk, you've come a long way since our last review. I wish we had it just for the record, but holy mama, he put in some work, boys. Probably one of the biggest account improvements I've seen ever. Valk, any closing thoughts on Legend and just what you want to say to the people?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the games where it's like if you just no matter whether your account has gear, if you have like the brains for it, or if you have the presence of mind to just slam more games, all it really takes is just like a little bit of dedication and just put in some time. And, if you have that, like, I'm sure you have a great time. And that's kind of why I love the game, right?
Yeah.
You put in a little bit of time, and it's just an amazing time with the community.
Well said, Valk. Amen. And also add having 70 crazy geared units, boys, and you'll be successful just like that. Just kidding. He has put in a lot of work, guys. The count now is looking great, but I'm telling you, I've known him since that start, and he's put in so much work, that diligence, and I'm happy for his success, man. I hope to see Hall of Fame next season. Easy.
Oh, I don't know about that one, Carb, but
easy,
hey,
confirmed, boys. We'll see him next review. Hall of Fame Valk. Valk, you want to say bye to the people? Where can they find you?
You can find me on twitch.tv/Valkyria_. You can find me on YouTube under the same name. At the end of the day, thank you, Car, so much for platforming this, because I just like talking about the game. I love your platform. Very wholesome. Special shout out to my coach and my brother Kami Kita. Special shout outs to the Veritas boys, Ape, Mace, Wind Demon, Bendur, Platy. These guys were with me throughout all of last day, and they were amazing.
Yeah, those guys are pretty cool, I guess. All right, Twitch, say bye to YouTube. Enjoy this very long review, but very full of pro tips. Thank you again, Val.
For sure. No problem.